So how about the next step? So what you wrote in part 1a is referred to as the input of the function. That's the thing that you can control. That's the thing that you input. In other words, you control how much time you study for an exam. So that's considered the input to the function. The input to the functional relationship, as it were. Okay? And we need to give a symbol to represent that. So how about a little lowercase t for time? Now, what comes out of that, in other words, you study for so many hours, and as a consequence, you get such and such a grade. Well, what comes out, what's the consequence of how much you study, is referred to as the output of the function. And the output of the function, in this case, the grade that you get needs a letter associated, a symbol associated with it. It doesn't have to be a letter, but many times we use Arabic letters. So how about a G for grade? And you can use lower or uppercase, doesn't really matter. But now we've clearly defined that little t represents the time that you study, and little g represents the grade that you're going to get. Okay? So you may have learned this in another class. If not, this will be your first exposure. But we're going to write something called functional notation. And it makes use of these three symbols right here. The name of the function, the input symbol, and the output symbol. And it goes like this. The output goes on the left, followed by the name of the function, and then a parentheses, and then the symbol that you chose for the input. And you read this, G, the grade you get is a function of the time you spend. Okay? We say G is equal to E of T. Do you see I'm saying of here? This is not multiplied. This is not E times T. It's E of T. Right? So what this means is, give me a T, I'll operate it on my relationship, the exam relationship, and out comes a corresponding grade. If I put, for example, 1 hour in, this relationship tells me what grade I'm going to get out. Okay, that's functional notation. Functional notation. Remember, it takes three symbols. Output symbol, input symbol, name of the functional relationship or function. So we're well along the way to communicating this relationship, this functional relationship, this function algebraically, but we have to be able to create scales for both the input and the output. Sometimes there are apparent scales that go with them, or natural scales. Sometimes you have to devise one if you want to try to do this algebraically, and it might be a little bit of a kludge to devise one, but sometimes you can. If you can't, then you have to give up. You have to give up on that particular relationship as being one that you can communicate algebraically, and you have to go back to step one here and start all over again with some other idea. You just, didn't pick one that lend itself to this kind of communication. Okay? So how about my example here of the grade or the exam function? The input is time, so let's choose a reasonable time. You can study 0 hours. Let's say, for practical sense, nobody really studies more than about 15 hours for an exam. That would be that would be the upper limit of what somebody would probably do. And what is the units of this 0 to 15? I think we were referring to them as hours. And how about the output scale? Let's see, exams. Typically, exams are from 0 to 100. Scale of 0 to 100. Right? And what are the units of the output scale? Oh, I guess points. Right? There's 0 to 100 points you could get on that. Okay? So everything's looking good. Looks like we're well on our way to communicating this relationship algebraically. We haven't run into any things that have made us stop and try something new.